If you want to know what makes the guitar solo to Ratt's massively successful single Round and Round so awesome, stick around because I'm going to tell you all about it. When it comes to memorable, iconic guitar solos, it's almost impossible to rival what hard rock and heavy metal guitarists did in the 1980s. Say what you want about the cliches, the over-reliance on image, and whatever else you can think of. The fact is, these guys just had a knack for coming up with solos that were utterly unforgettable. One such guy is Warren DeMartini of California glam metal band Ratt. So in this video, I want to talk about his brilliant solo to the band's biggest single, an exceptionally catchy song entitled Round and Round. This is one of those song within a song kind of solos, in that it isn't played over the main riff or a chord progression used during the song's verse or chorus. It's an entirely separate section of the song, and it exists within that space. Jake E. Lee's Bark at the Moon solo, which I looked at in a previous video, is another one with this same function. So I'll link to it in this video's description so that you can check that one out next. Solos like this tend to have a story-like structure. There's a strong beginning to hook you in, some fast bits with slower melodic bits in between so that you get to experience a variety of emotions from exhilaration to melancholy, joy, etc., and a build to a powerful and memorable climax that closes the solo and gets you back into the song but leaves a lingering imprint. In Round and Round, Warren does this all to perfection. So let's look at how he structured and composed the different parts of this historical solo. It all starts with a strong and well thought out accompaniment that allows the lead guitar to play a mixture of fast runs and melodic ideas and motifs with phrasing that is both interesting and creative. In this song, the solo section sees a key change from E minor to A minor. Now, this is just enough to catch your attention, but because they're closely related keys, only one note is different, the change feels smooth and natural. So right there, you can see how this outlines and pretty much lays the groundwork for the solo. You have 4 bars centered on the root chord A, where you can play some cool sounding licks that don't need to be connected in any meaningful way. Then we go down to F for that classic 6-7-1 progression that just begs for melody. The first time around, it ends with a stop, and that's a perfect spot to play a flurry that just spools up the tension. The second time around, the chugging 8th notes make for a more deliberate melody, and then the last time, the progression starts on F, but then moves down to E to C to G over B, and then stops for just half a bar to highlight the final lick. That leads back to the verse and a return to the key of E minor with the chords B and D on the 3rd and 4th beat of that last bar, which leads nicely to E, which then becomes the new home chord. The solo itself is mostly based on the minor blues scale with just 1 or 2 chromatics, so Warren isn't using any exotic scales nor is he playing any modal lines. This is a very straightforward rock solo from that standpoint, but what makes it interesting is his creative phrasing. Hey, before we continue, I just wanted to show you guys something that I think is really cool. So this is the original cassette that I bought when I was 9 or 10 years old. I had just finished seeing the video for Round and Round and totally fell in love with the song. So the next time we went to the shopping mall, I asked my parents to get this for me. So as you can see, It's pretty worse for wear. Back then, you didn't really get any inserts on the inside. The cassette is pretty worn out. But every now and then, I'm still gonna listen to this on cassette just to get that 80s vibe and go down memory lane a little bit. The opening is simple, but it really hits hard. So he starts with a 1.5 step bend from E to G, which is the minor 7th over the A chord. He then slides over to that G and bends it up a whole step to A. So you get that minor 7th to the tonic over the 1 chord, which is a very bluesy thing to do, and there's no way that doesn't get your attention. He then grabs another bend higher up and then does a quick pentatonic flurry, which is pretty typical for this kind of solo. But he punctuates that phrase with this wild slide on the G string. It's nothing special, but it sounds so awesome, and it's a really cool way to transition out of a lick. So that became kind of a trademark of his, and I believe he borrowed it from George Lynch. He then does 2 short licks that are basically like scat singing on guitar. Licks like these don't have any particularly poignant melody, but they play an important role in making a solo sound cool. This is all vibe, and it's something you'll hear from the best players, from Hendrix to Van Halen to Tim Henson. The next lick is the mandatory, uniquely recognizable, quirky, flashy lick that could be found in many great metal solos like Crazy Train, Wasted Years, or Painkiller, and usually just before the finale. In this case, it involves a pretty big stretch from the 13th to the 20th fret and some precise double picking, plus that crazy DeMartini slide again. That takes us to the second half of the solo, which is played as a harmony with co-guitarist Robin Crosby. Most of it is harmonized in thirds, which is pretty standard issue in heavy metal, although there are a few fourths in there and even a short line played in unison at the end. This slight variation in the harmony keeps it from feeling too stiff and changes up the way some of the lines feel. And that's because the closer the intervals, the more a harmony feels tight and closed. Thirds also tend to feel a bit more melancholic, especially when you're in a minor key. So widening the intervals a bit makes things feel a little more open and a little bit brighter. And if you're enjoying this video, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so that you never miss another video. It also goes a long way in bringing this content to others who enjoy the same kind of thing. There are basically 3 sections to this part. It starts with long note bends and release that open up the solo after the tighter licks we heard up until this point. So for this whole section, I'm gonna play everything twice. The first time I'm gonna play Warren's part, and then the second time I'm gonna play Robin's part. Then there's the 16th note legato phrase in the empty space created by the band taking a 1-bar rest, followed by a short melodic motif that is repeated twice. So here's Warren's part. And Robin's part goes like this. So all this serves to build it up once more before the final release of the solo's climax. And that climax comes with this 2-octave ascending arpeggio, and then some long note bends that reference the initial line of the harmony section, and the whole thing is punctuated by a short lick over a 1/2-bar rest. Now the purpose of this is to build it up once more before the final release of the solo's climax. And that climax starts with this 2-octave ascending arpeggio. So Warren plays it here, and Robin plays it here. That ties into some long note bends that reference the initial line of the harmony section, and the whole thing is punctuated by a short lick over that 1/2-bar rest. So here's Warren's part. And Robin's fart goes like this. So I hope this was a fun watch, and maybe you even picked up an idea or two that you can use in your own solos. Let me know your thoughts and questions in the comments, and if there are any solos you'd like me to discuss in a future video, let me know that as well.
That same evening.
Sounds like a chicken. This thing played slow is weird. That was not great.